Assalamu alaikum. You just have no idea how intimidating it is to be up here in front of this many people. It's amazing. This conference has just been amazing. I want to start by setting the record straight. First, I think the most impressive thing that I can say I have in my bio, and just to save all the Facebook messages asking me, yes, I am Yasmin Mogahed's sister. Alhamdulillah. I want to build on what Professor Esposito talked about. He really made a case for a call to action. Muslims have to be involved in some capacity in the public square. And I want to start by first putting out a different narrative that I think we need to start talking about and thinking about when we think about our role in our society. And then I want to talk about what I think is an often missing part of this conversation, which is the spiritual dimensions of activism. So first, the narrative that I'd like us to really consider for how we engage in our society. You know, oftentimes the questions that are asked, especially in the line of work I do, which is studying Muslim opinion globally and specifically also Muslim American opinion, the question that's often asked by policymakers or the media when they want to hear what Muslims think is, are they a threat? Are Muslims a threat? I mean, that's the question. So essentially the question is, are Muslim Americans or Muslim Canadians a benign or malignant tumor? Now, these societies are bodies. They discovered a tumor called Muslims, and they just want to know, what is the nature of this tumor? So tell us, from your research, should we be scared of this tumor? Should we try to extract it? Should we try to, put it under radiation or chemo? Should we at least, at the bare minimum, keep it under surveillance? Or is it pretty much benign and we can just leave it alone? And what I'd like us to start responding with is not, we're actually really benign. We are harmless. We aren't going to hurt you. Islam means peace. Now, all of these are true statements, but we're answering the wrong question. Because we are not a benign tumor. Muslims are a vital organ. These societies, our societies, would be weaker, less safe, less prosperous if our communities were not part of them. So we have to stop answering the wrong question, and we have to have a completely different narrative that we're offering the world. And the first part of that is for us to understand who we are. We are a vital organ in the body of our society, not a benign tumor. Now, I want to talk to you, referencing the Quran, about how we should approach this public role that we inevitably will be called to take on. Because to be a vital organ, we need to be healthy. We need to know who we are, and we need to know our purpose. And so the Quran actually has like a handbook for the activist. And it's in Surah Al-Muddathir. Now, Surah Al-Muddathir, which means the one who is covered up, was the surah that was revealed to the Prophet, at least the first 5 verses, right after the first revelation of Iqra. And it's considered by the scholars of tafsir to be when the Prophet ﷺ was called to be from a messenger. I'm sorry, from a prophet to being a messenger. It's when he was called on to begin preaching, to take the message to the people. This is how Allah approached with the Prophet ﷺ his public role. This is the beginning of his public role. And I think we can learn so much from these first 7 verses about what it means and what is required of us when we decide to take on a public role. So the surah starts out, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-Rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuha al-muddathir. O you who is wrapped up in a mantle. And we know this story, it's such a beautiful story. The Prophet ﷺ, when he got that terrifying and glorious first revelation, he was, as any of us would be, scared, suffered from self-doubt, didn't know what was happening to him. And what did he do? He ran to his wife and he asked her to cover him. He wasn't seeking this. He wasn't running to this. He was running away from it. He was covering himself from it. And that's the first lesson of activism. If you are running to this life of activism, of a public role, then God forbid, stay away from it. If you're doing it out of ambition, run away from it. It should be only for those who are being called out of that covering, out of that fear of the responsibility. Ya ayyuha al-muddathir. It has to be for those who are coming out of a cover reluctantly for this kind of public work. It cannot be out of an inclination, a desire, a raising your hand, you can't wait. I'm here to tell you, having a public role is generally a terrible idea. Not what you expected, right? So shun it, run away from it, unless you are compelled to take it on. And when you are, then listen to the rest of the surah. قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ. Arise and deliver thy warning. Now this is really, really important. The Prophet ﷺ was not told to rise and make everybody Muslim. He was told to rise and warn. He was not asked for results. Is there anything having to do with outcomes in this ayah? No. Because his responsibility wasn't the outcomes. Even the Prophet ﷺ was not asked for outcomes. He was asked for obedience. If you are going to take a public role, divorce yourself of your attachment to the outcomes. You are not responsible for the outcomes. You are going to be asked about your obedience, not about the outcomes. If you attach yourself to the outcomes, you will very quickly fall into a philosophy of the means justifies the ends. I have seen it too many times. And it is understandable and it is natural. You are so eager for people to come to your event. So you start recruiting out of somebody else's group. And then there's division and hatred between the two groups in the same Muslim community when they're both Qiyam al-Layls. What difference does it make if they're going to Qiyam al-Layl at the other masjid? I can still not understand this idea of actively recruiting somebody else's Qiyam al-Layl. Really? The outcomes are not your responsibility. Ask yourself one question: what does God want from me? Yasmin said it a few days ago, yesterday and today. What does God want from me? That is the only thing that matters. The outcomes are irrelevant to you. قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ. He also was told, alayhi salatu salam, to warn. Their souls are not your responsibility. Your role is as a warner. Your role is to deliver the truth, not to make people swallow it whole. You know, if you think about who should we be, think of yourself as a mailman, not a missionary. The question you will be asked is, did you deliver the mail? Not did they open it, read it, and accept it. Just deliver. Be a mailman, not a missionary. We are not here responsible for outcomes. We will be asked only about our obedience. وَرَبِّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. Subhanallah, this is the whole thing. And thy Lord you should magnify. A public role must be to glorify God. It must be so God is glorified, not your organization, not your movement, not some leader, not some brand. How many times have we seen in our communities people mistaking the means and the mission? If God is the real goal, if it is about glorifying Him, then we're not going to compete on petty things, because we will all be working toward the same goal, even if our means are diverse. Making God the goal also helps us let go when it's time for us to let go. Now, I have been in several situations, both as a community member and even as an advisor and as a consultant, where people tell me, or I experience, a situation where an institution has founding members on a board who have been there for 30 years, kind of like Mubarak. And the community needs them to move on, because young blood needs to come in and take on the next chapter of the organization. It's okay. And they just cannot let go. And then there are lawsuits and fistfights. We need to separate between the mission and the means. And I'm no better, right? I used to be the executive director of the Gallup Center for Muslim Studies. I was so proud of this institution that I founded and I thought was doing such important work. And so when there would be a threat to my center within my company, we didn't have the funds, or there were political issues that I felt like were threatening my center, I would be freaking out. It would be huge anxiety and stress, as if the means became the ends. If I am truly certain that this is simply a means to glorify God in some way, to serve Him on His path, then I have to have the sakina, the security, and the peace to know that if He chooses this vehicle for me to walk on His path for a time, then I should use that vehicle to go on His path for a time. And when He takes that vehicle away from me, He'll give me a different vehicle to walk on His path. But my goal is to be on His path to get back to Him, not to ride this vehicle, which should be irrelevant, should be expendable. So let go of your pet projects if they aren't meant to be yours anymore. Let go of your institutions if you need to move on. Attach yourself to the mission, not to the means. Make it about glorifying God, not glorifying a brand, a movement, a leader. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. Now, these two simple words have layers upon layers of meaning. So one meaning, the apparent one that you often see in translations is, and purify your garment, your actual clothing. And so the scholars of tafsir have said that this means make sure that your garment is from halal means, meaning generally make sure that what you're doing and how you're conducting yourself is from halal means. If you're going to take on a public role, make sure that the resources that you're using for that public role are befitting the mission of your role. Another meaning, though, is it's your inner self, your heart, that you should purify. That thiyabaka is actually your inner soul. And I want to talk about this for a minute. If you are going to take on a public role, you have just signed yourself up to do way more in terms of inner work than the regular person, than the regular Joe, Mo, or Mahmoud. It is not going to be enough for you to just do the minimum anymore, because you've taken on another level. You've gone from little leagues to the Olympics, and the training that you need to compete and to be whole in this new world of being scrutinized and written about by bloggers and insulted on Twitter is a whole new world of spiritual fitness. And just like the Prophet ﷺ was told that you will be carrying a heavy message, so only sleep a third of the night, it's the same way with any of you who want to take on this public role. It's like the exact opposite of the secular message. Your days will be long and hard, so make sure not to get a lot of sleep. Purify thy soul. Do the inner work. Without it, you will inevitably fall into attachment to the means, attachment to the fame, attachment to the ego. This inner work requires extreme self-awareness. You have to be really in tune with what's going on inside. And the next ayah builds on this. وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجِرْ. Now, Ar-Rujz is actually the name of a pagan god. There are different ways to translate this. It says, and all defilement shun. So shun what is defiled, what is not pure. But another layer is that this is actually the name of pagan god. It is talking specifically about shunning the false idols. Now, the Prophet ﷺ never worshipped these false idols. What is this ayah talking about? We're all Muslims. We don't bow down to idols. It's talking about the invisible idols that we deal with every day. The ego, the love of reputation, the love of fame. We have to shun these. We have to purify our intentions over and over and over and over. Now, this does not mean that at the first feeling of enjoying the recognition that you should quit. This is not about self-flagellation. This is about self-awareness. This is about being a part of a struggle against yourself. Always in struggle. If you're struggling, then you're okay. If you're beating yourself up, then you are falling into a trap of shaitan. And if you're feeling way too satisfied, you've also fallen into a trap of shaitan. Where you need to be is in the middle, where you are constantly asking yourself, what am I doing and how do I get there? Struggle with yourself, don't beat yourself up, and don't be satisfied. ولا تمنن تستكثر. Don't give so that you may increase yourself is one meaning of this ayah. Don't contribute so that you're feeding your own self-interest. If your public role is stemming from a career ladder, I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm just telling you to be really honest with yourself about why you're doing what you're doing. What is needed for us to be the vital organs that we need to be is for this work to be rooted in sincerity. It has to be selfless giving. It has to be expecting nothing. In fact, perhaps expecting nothing but harm. Because if you think it's going to be easy, think again. Don't give so that you may increase yourself. But another meaning, which is so miraculous, which is so amazing, is it actually also means don't weaken in your quest for good. So it means don't give so you may receive more. Don't be self-interested, but also don't be weak in your quest for good. If you're going to do something, do it with ihsan. This conference is a perfect example. Wallahi, mashallah. I say this from my heart. Look at the sincerity that is so manifest. Look at the number of people here. Look at the organization. They are not weak in seeking good. If you're going to do it for Allah, then don't be weak. Be strong in your seeking of excellence. Don't I won't say what I usually say. Don't half do it. Give it your all or stay home. And then finally, وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. And onto your sustainer, Rabb, turn in patience. Because let me tell you, and anyone else here who's doing anything public will tell you it requires a lot of patience. The road will be rocky. You will feel weak. What should you do about that? Where do you turn for sanctuary? Rabbak, the sustainer, the source of energy. Don't turn in the wrong direction. Don't go to people. As much as they are there for you, and yes, they can offer comfort, but the real energy, the real source of respite is your sustainer. Go to him when you are weak. Now, I want to end by talking about one specific hardship that anyone with a public role will inevitably face and will require so much patience in turning to Rabb al-Alameen. And that is in the age of social media, especially, that is the hardship of slander. In fact, if you are in a public role and you are not facing any slander, I would say check yourself. Something's wrong. You will face this problem. I guarantee it. And I think no one knows that more, perhaps, than Professor John Esposito. We just had a wonderful full spread written about us beginning of this month on a magazine that a very well-read right-wing magazine, which I will not mention. So slander is normal. How should you deal with it? First, recognize one thing. You are in great company. Why? Because alayhi salatu wassalam was slandered. He was told specifically to be patient about what they say and to leave them. So when it's happening, at least take comfort that you are in great company. Second, I was told this by a friend, and I think it's beautiful. I was told this: consider your reputation and honor a sadaqah that you will donate to do God's work. Subhanallah. Once you see it that way, that you're actually giving to Allah, it becomes much easier to have that patience. Third, be grateful for it. You know, Yasmin was talking about the 3 levels of dealing with hardship. One is anger at God, which is the wrong way. Number 2 is patience. And number 3 is actually rida, being happy with it. I would say the third in this case, be happy with it, be grateful for it. Why? Because it is creating friction between you, your heart, and this public profile you have, the fame. You are seeing the bad side of fame, the ugly side of fame, the uncomfortable side of fame, and so you don't get attached to it. It is creating friction, so you stay unattached from this Velcro called fame that wants to suck you in and have you want to hold on to it and fear losing it. When it makes it so hard to be known because of the slander, it helps your heart be protected, and it means Allah is protecting you because He loves you. So be grateful for the slander because it keeps your heart safe. Number 4, thank you. Hold your head up. Feel proud and feel free because it means you matter. It means you threaten injustice at least a little. And that alone is worth a little bit of hardship. They wouldn't be going after you if you weren't threatening some status quo that is built on injustice. And then finally, number 5, remember how lucky we are. We're all here, we're all safe. There's no tear gas, there are no bullets. So what are we enduring? Some Twitter trolls? Some crazy bloggers? Alhamdulillah, we go home to our families and we're safe. Our brothers and sisters are paying a much higher price to say a word of truth. Jazakallah khairan.